I have another beautiful speaker with me, Tonia Smith, who is participating in the Build Your Influence Ecosystem Summit. She is an award-winning speaker, best-selling author, and certified business strategist, social media marketing expert, and she helps coaches, consultants, and content creators develop the skills, structure, and systems essential for growing their business and brands. Welcome, Tonia. I wanted to kick it off by learning a little bit about your journey into building your own business and how you define influence ecosystem and how you built that for yourself.
First of all, Michelle, thank you. Thank you for providing this platform and this moment. I love that question because I think there's always a journey. And in the beginning, I had skills and I had knowledge, and I wanted everyone to know that. I wanted to just show up and be the expert. And it's a process. Now, it doesn't have to take a long time. Believe social media has been a gift for so many business owners if it's applied, because you can develop that influence and relatively fast. And the key is once I learned to be relatable, and it's funny, I say that. When I said that word, I'm like, learn to be relatable, like just being a human, right? Instead of trying to be this person or this image or working so hard to be like the influencer or the guru, right? That I was thinking, oh, if I could just be just like that,
Right.
then I'm going to have the influence. And over time, I realized that that doesn't work because what their voice and their audience is maybe not my audience or my voice. And it just took a little bit of time. And now I see it so clearly that just showing up and providing value. And I think the key here is once I switch my focus from what am I going to sell?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important to know. I think you need to have that in game where you're going to point people, but more of a how am I going to help them? How am I going to solve their problem? And what do I have to help them do that? And once I have that in game, like what is the program, the product, it can be for product based. Once I know that, then everything's reverse engineered and then go into that level of where that person is. What is it they really need? And then walk them through that process of from there.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And it's not always easy. It wasn't always easy. And I think that's so important to go. I had to start to the beginning because that's the journey. And so what I realized in this, it's about building relationships and not just superficial. And I think in this day, we really have to show up as who we are. And that's scary, but showing up as who we are, and it doesn't mean what I had to realize is that balance. Because I'm like, okay, I don't want to share everything,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to share some things. And my coach called me a covert operative. She meant is she looked at my profile and couldn't tell I was in business. So that's fine line between showing up awkwardly, just being taking people through that journey, your growth, and letting people go watch you, see you mess up. And I was scared of that. So walking through that journey and then finally getting to this place where I'm just got to be me and provide people the value at the level they're at. And that's another thing. We can get to a place where we forget what it's like to start out. And so for me, I help people through their social media content that goes through a sales conversion. And sometimes people are not ready for the conversion part at the higher level. Maybe they're just ready for a social media post that leads to maybe a conversation, and then maybe an invite where there's no tech involved or whatever. So it's just a understanding where everyone's at. And that takes just a little bit of time, just a little bit of effort of understanding who they are, building that relationship, getting in those conversations, allowing the person, and I say person because we should be talking to that one person, but what does that one person need? How can you help that one person?
Oh, I love it. And I think you really are getting into some of the nuances. I'm wondering what's the right balance between, okay, your own storytelling and then, content for people who are ready to buy, and then content for people who are on the fence, not ready, maybe in a year, nurturing, and then something like in between that too. What do
Oh, I
you
love
think? Like
this.
how much, what's the percentage, or do we have to be like formulaic about that, or what are your thoughts?
I think it's just understanding that the traditional, which is that sales funnel, that process. You got people that at the top of the funnel, they're not aware. They're not aware they have a problem. They may have symptoms. They may just have a symptom of, for example, like you have a toothache, right? They may just have a toothache. But if you're trying to sell them a root canal, they're like, I don't need a root canal. But if you explain to them the symptoms, okay, here's what might be happening if you have a toothache. If
Yeah.
you're having this A, B, and C is happening, you might need a root canal. So then all of a sudden they're aware. Oh, I might need a root canal,
Yeah.
right? So you create content to tell them, okay, now you're aware, right? So then you start your language, the words you use are going to speak to that awareness. So then they become aware and they're seeing you. They're going, oh, Michelle's got this root canal that this might solve my problem. Right. So now they're more open. Right. They're like, oh, they're open and they're seeing that maybe they'll take you up on a lead magnet, a freebie. Maybe they'll come into your free group. Maybe they'll get on your email system. So they're checking you out. Right. And then usually from there, as long as you're showing up, I think this is where it's key. I think people get really, I know I did at the beginning. I'm like, you mean I got to show up every day? But being consistent allows that process to happen a little quicker than if you just go incognito, like I did in the beginning, but just showing up and whatever that means to you, that consistency means to you, and then taking them, then they're going to be open. Now, not only they're open, you're creating offers. So then that's when you're saying, hey, if you're experiencing this tooth is hurting and you're having the symptoms, you probably may possibly need a root canal. Grab my root canal, grab my checklist or my guide, and this will walk you through. And then once you realize you do need a root canal, then you can, here's my offer. So
Yeah.
it's just taking them through that process. And
Mhm.
for some people, like you said, some people have to be on the fence a while. And so you got to almost learn to create that content that speaks to all those people. And it sounds complicated, but it really isn't. If you understand who you're serving, you might not be serving the people that are unaware. You may want to focus just on the people that are more aware. I
Yeah.
think you got to pick one of those. But I still think that there's a certain amount of language and content that needs to be done for the unaware.
Mhm.
Because if you're truly wanting to serve, that's the biggest group of people to speak to.
So then if we continue with that analogy, then it's okay, you're going to have to share with them like why a root canal versus pulling out your teeth, and
There you go. Yeah.
or like
Yeah.
why root canal with you as well,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
why are you
That's exactly
better
right.
better at doing the root canal than anyone else? It's a weird topic to start with, but I like it because at the end of the day, unfortunately, I think that when people are in a lot of pain, that's when they're like, I need a solution. And that's where it's like, I,
Oh, yes. That's exactly, you just brought that up because that's exactly why it's so important to be showing up. That's why it's important to write that email and create that social media post. And I think we tend to think there's so much noise out there and there's such competition. But if you're showing up and you create that and just what you said, it's like their pain is so bad. Honestly, the first person they see is I'm grabbing that. And so sometimes it's timing and I don't want to harp on showing up because I feel like probably most of the people watching this are showing up. Sometimes we're showing up all the time. And so we're showing up consistently, but maybe the results aren't there because that's when it comes down to getting that language, that messaging.
yeah. And I do feel like for some of the people listening, they are visionaries that are maybe even creating offers that people don't know they need yet because it's so like ahead of their time type of thing. So there is an element of educating that everyone needs to do. So I appreciate you sharing that. And like you said, being of service to whoever it is, you never know, yeah, where that comes back to you threefold.
I love what you just said earlier because I think it's as us when coaches or service providers, we get into that mode. And I know I'm guilty of it, where you just said creating like product or a freebie or a course or whatever, because we think that's what people are wanting. And I think reality for me, I know I sometimes get bored with what I have because I've already passed that. I'm like, oh, let me find something new. And we have AI now that will give us all kinds of ideas.
Sure.
And I think that's can be almost a little overwhelming for us and sometimes for our audience when we're going, okay, if you didn't like that, let's try this. And I think it's important to be very, once you understand what they truly need and not give up if the first rattle out of the box is not working, and try it out.
Yeah. Maybe that's a good segue into your session, which is about mind reading magic, crafting perfect posts now. Share with us a little bit, what is some of the pre-work that people need to do to really understand their audience before they create content?
I'm very excited about this, by the way, because I think it's going to be really fun. I'll be honest that the behind the scenes, the research, it can be tedious, but it really can be fun. And it doesn't take a lot. And there's different resources depending on where your platform is. And I think that's important also to understand because I use several, like you talk about finding the language your audience is speaking, and there's so many different ways. And so one of the easiest ways is if you're, for example, on Facebook, I'll pick that because that's the one I'm more familiar with or on more. Because I know I've seen this type of thing on LinkedIn and Instagram, but I love Facebook because the visual. So if you get on, for example, an ad that relates to your niche, it's maybe something that you would have created. And then you go into the comment section. And not every ad has a lot of good ones, but you go into the comment section. And what I love is the ones that complain. Because then you're going, okay, so they have, let's say it's a weight loss. The ad is lose 10 pounds in 5 days.
Yeah.
And someone said, I've tried everything and nothing works for me. Why do you think this will work? That is content. That is powerful, right? That's getting into the mind. That's getting into the mind of your audience. And you can take that exact wording and create a piece of content if you're in the health and wellness. Say, I'm going to teach you, say, hey, I can help you lose 10 pounds in 5 days healthy. And even if nothing's ever worked for you before. So you use that language back to them. Now, this may or may not be a new concept, but I think it's underutilized. And even when we have, and I love using the AI we have, there's a tool that we can use to make our lives so much easier. But on the back end of that, you got to understand that AI is only a tool, and you've got to know what is your audience really saying so that when AI brings you that, you can make sure it's right. So just a little bit of effort. And sometimes it's as simple as going to Google and asking, or going to like SpyFu or TubeBuddy or some of those platforms that offer you the keywords that people are typing in, and just taking those words and then using. And then, of course, there's other things once you're creating the content, but just doing that little research and getting those words and then incorporating them.
That's a really great point, is doing a little bit of competitor research, looking at what ads are working and how people are reacting to them. What is your thought on understanding our own perspective and voice and having that layered into how we're sharing as well?
I think it's very important because it goes back to when I said I wanted to be like other people. I thought they look successful. I'll just do exactly what they did. It didn't resonate. Your audiences are audiences, not just all of them. We're all as humans, we're so in tune and so skeptical, I think is maybe not the right word, but it's of people not being genuine. And I even notice it. I see myself going, you roll your eyes. You're watching social media, you get on the scroll, right? And I don't know the numbers, but there's even research showing that right now in the world we're in right this minute, people are tired of the over polished and the over professional. They want to see the real and raw. They want to see people kind of stuttering a little bit and not having the perfect video. Audio, yes. I always say I think the audio is important if you can at all make that happen, but just not having it perfect. And I think that's really key.
Yeah. I think, as you said, people are more sophisticated and they want the real, raw, authentic version.
Yeah.
So that's great for all of us content creators, right? In a way.
Isn't that nice? Yeah. I started some YouTube channels and I haven't been on YouTube consistently. And I know that the video and the audio needs to be great. But if you're going to pick one, you need to pick audio. My video, and I've noticed that my screen, like this blue, I just not feeling it, right? And I could redo it and stress about it and agonize, but nobody cares. And so I'm a farm girl, got horses, sweaty, nasty. And I had this thought, and I got on and did a live about how putting hay in the barn is similar to marketing. And it was a great thought. It was a great point. I don't think anybody cared that as much about it as me being real and raw. They probably listened to it more because I was just in the moment. And that was just, I've done that several times, not on purpose really. But if I have that thought, I think if I don't say it now, I'm going to forget it. And I think those are some of the best engaging videos. Now, not every platform is as I've done some research, like sometimes one platform will love it and the other won't. Depends on your platform, but
Right.
for
Yeah.
the most part, I think
The
it's good.
point, like, why not improv sometimes? And especially if you get a good idea, we don't
Mhm.
have to reschedule everything out.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So you also have an amazing resource for all of us, a Sales and Marketing Mastery 500 GPT prompts. Share with us more about what's in there.
It's a lot. And I almost didn't want to provide that many. I love that Chat GPT knows who I am and knows everything. I've worked through that process. But if it doesn't know you, you got to start somewhere, right? And these prompts, so example, if you want to create a funnel, you've never created a funnel, you type in one of the prompts, it's going to actually walk you through what information you need. And I think that system helps because if we sit down and you're going, oh, I got to create a funnel, like I don't even know how to start, that can be very overwhelming. There's copywriting prompts, there's sale, like business marketing startups, getting started in your marketing. So there's so many different levels of a beginner or advanced, but either way, if you've got your information, your history in ChatGPT, those prompts will just be ready to go. But
Right.
if you don't, like I had a client that she used one and she goes, oh my God, I was able to create my whole funnel in one setting. It just took minutes instead of hours. And but she already had her chat. The
Sure.
beautiful thing about AI I love, and the reason why I love it as a tool is because when you don't know the answer, you can say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, right? Let's say it says, who's your audience? A lot of times people starting out don't have a clue. I don't know. And then you say, I don't even know my audience. Can you help me? And then it can give you that feedback. So,
The coach in it of itself too, right?
yeah. And
Okay.
so this free gift, it's valuable. It's probably not always going to be for free, but for your summit, right? Like I was looking at it going, should I cut it down? Not because I want to eliminate, but because it can be overwhelming, so many things, but I'm not going to do that. It's like I said, I'm keeping it as original.
Wow, what a amazing library you've created. And I guess something for everyone, right? So
Yeah.
depending what theme you're stuck on, and that way you don't even have to think. It's just plug and play from there. What can we leave everyone off with parting thoughts for anyone who is maybe starting to build a new funnel in their business? What are some of your thoughts in guiding them through the process?
I would say it goes back to the basics. I will, no matter what the trends, no matter what the resources we have available, marketing is always going to be marketing and it's going to be understanding who your audience is, what is their needs. We talked about that tooth. Getting, instead of coming at it from, I need to sell a root canal, really understanding where they're at in that moment, where they're sitting there in pain. Everything they drink hurts. But just thinking about that person and their pain and then not to dwell there, but to go, okay, how can I help that person? Not this selling my root canal, but how can I help that person get to that stage? Maybe I need to give them some support in that before they're ready for the root canal. Maybe I need to give them a little bit of resources that they can maybe learn how to not eat the foods that give them the problem in the first place. So understanding their needs, then you can create things around that and paint that picture of desire. What would it feel like not having pain? What
Mm.
if you could take a bite of a candy bar or a piece of take a bite of ice cream and not put tears in your eyes, right? Paint that picture and then present the solution, right? And like there's more into that, right? It's basically goes back to showing up, being you, being authentic, and being willing to show the real you and the real and the raw. Doesn't mean you have to air all your dirty laundry, but it means when you're presenting it, just make sure you're using your voice, your tone, not someone else's.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much for all your wisdom. I cannot wait
You're so sweet.
for our session. And I encourage everyone to register down below. And yeah, make sure you come live, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thanks, Tonia.
Thank you.